Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome to Nightlight, everybody. This is one of my favorite shows of the month. This is a time when I get to spend time with Solaris BlueRaven on her show, Neon Twilight, a magical title from a magical lady. Now, most of you know her. She has 2 other radio shows that she populates, and she manages to be all over the airwaves as a guest and then as a commentator, too. She's about as talented as they come, and she has gifts and insight, wisdom and philosophies that we have not quite even delved the depths of. So that the last Sunday in every month, and I know this is not the last Sunday, forgive me for that one, but we had to shove it around. She and I get together and we get to compare notes and we get to talk and we get to stretch each other and challenge each other in many ways. She has such a massive amount of knowledge, insight, and philosophies that I have never gotten tired of talking to her. And that's saying something. We've been talking for a lot of years back and forth, and it gets more and more exciting every year. We seem to add to our backlog of material every time we switch around. And for those of you who wonder who Solaris is, she's that iridescent little head that's next to me on the screen. But there's actually a person behind it, and I'm going to bring her on now. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Solaris, welcome to your show.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here again with you.
It's always a pleasure. You always, you're one of the highlights of my month because, first of all, while we have to figure out what we're going to talk about, it's usually a topic that both you and I have some knowledge of, so that we do kind of stretch each other a little bit. And the topic that we picked tonight is one that has been fascinating me for a long time. And I've looked into and I've researched and I've delved into my own. And I just thought it would be fun to share thoughts on past lives. I know you've done a lot of material on them. You've done research and, you've done astral traveling and you've done remote viewing and you've done all sorts of stuff, so that talking about past lives is probably second nature to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great topic. I'm so glad you decided to use this one today. So yeah, we can expand on all different facets of what's going on while we're sleeping or when we're in a trance, or some people have past life regression done and some people have recall. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
What do you think the point to having the knowledge of them? I mean, obviously, we are assuming that everybody has past lives, but why? What is this jumping, like, what's the purpose of this jumping lifetime to lifetime to lifetime?
Well, from what I look at it, it's almost like a database. So if you look at it in terms of, cellular memory of another timeline or another lifetime, it seems like people are drawing from a database of some kind, whether it's through their ancestors' genetic code or their multiple lifetimes on or off planet. So to me, I see it like that. I see it like a big database where the central computer is being accessed, and all of a sudden this data unfolds, and the people who are witnessing this event, they start resonating with the material or information more than likely connected to where they've been. That's how I see it anyway. It's just like a big database.
Is it wisdom that we've gathered, or is it the experience of the lifetime that's important, or is it both?
That's a good question. I think it's both. I think it's what we've achieved, what we haven't achieved, the data in there that is critical for us here on the timeline that we need to pull in for this lifetime. So if there's something we didn't get to fulfill, we do it this time around, or we have recall of something we needed to learn from. I mean, there's so many levels to it. I think it's both, to be honest.
Well, so I keep reading material about people who have recalled past lives. Children, in India especially, the children that when they were old enough to talk said to their parents, this is not my family. My family lives 100 miles from here, and I was a husband and I had children, and when they take them, they discover that that's true, that was a past life of that particular spirit. Is there I understand, and I tell people that each lifetime is a stepping stone. But when we come to a lifetime, do we have any awareness as to what it is we're supposed to experience, or is it haphazard?
I think it's, for me, only going from my benchmark of what I've been looking at, it seems to me like it's something we need to look at insofar as an experience we had, whether it's traumatic or non-traumatic or something along those timelines where it's important and significant for us to experience again or witness. And also it's a reminder. So say you have a timeline in association with the pyramids, and all of a sudden they start popping up and when you're a child, and all of a sudden the energies are associated with that timeline to such a degree that person starts to inquire about the pyramids and becomes a traveler or an archaeologist. I think something dovetails along the way when it comes down to information, where we've been and where we walked.
I don't think it's haphazard. That's what gets me, and it fascinates me that we've probably had millions and millions of past lives, and yet,
oh yeah,
and it's sort of like, with that many experiences, what are we gathering it for? What is the purpose of it?
Well, hopefully to get out of here. I mean, if people keep having recall of what they've been doing here on this timeline or where they've been on this realm, I would say it's time to move on to another space-time in another universe. That's just me, though. But it seems to me like I think they've pretty much fulfilled what they needed to do for the most part. Go ahead.
Well, we talk about human experience, but a past life, a spirit, when it comes into an avatar, doesn't necessarily come into a human avatar. It could be on another planet, on another timeline, in another dimension.
Right. Well, there's no such thing as a human where I come from. So, I've written about this in my book insofar as the way people describe human is really avatar in its own. We enter onto timelines here from another space-time configuration. Then we occupy this biosuit, what I call a biosuit or a body or a star body. But the bottom line is man's definition of human it's never been correct, in my opinion. I think it's been flawed. So I know that's the norm here on this realm, and I get it. But on a cosmic scale, that's not accurate. So yeah, you're right. When it comes down to what we occupy when we're off planet, and the avatar aspects, and how we can reconfigure ourselves into existing in other realms, in other planets.
Well, then, is the human experience the only experience? And if it's not, then what are the other experiences doing to expand our consciousness, higher consciousness, whatever?
I don't think the experiences here are that beneficial, to be honest. I'm just going for myself. Even just dialing to where I've been, after all I've been through, I find that the biggest adventure is yet to come. And that it's really just how we are when we fully traverse the galactic highway and we look back and we say, wow. And we see where we've been on all timelines and all lifetimes and all experiences. And it's like a big data file, and we can transmute it. And then we move to this beautiful, beautiful multiverse. That's me. So that's how I see it. I find that that's where we're supposed to be, and that's what we should stay focused on.
Yeah, I when I talk to people and they
drop something,
they get they get upset about things people are doing, and I remind them that, you know, if you recognize something, it's because you've been that in a past life. So don't condemn it, understand it. It's a learning experience for that person. Not a good one. I mean, there's a lot of awful stuff going on, but each lifetime hasn't necessarily always been a happy one. There have been times that we've been miserable, and we've been poor, and we've been slaves, and we've been all sorts of horrible things. And you know, hopefully this lifetime is an improvement. But in the timeline of our lifetimes, we have to have experienced just terrible stuff. And, you know, to come to this point in time and be able to recognize terrible stuff, I guess, means that we've actually been there. And, you know, it's just, it makes me wonder, because we're talking of millions of lifetimes. I mean, have they all been on a human level?
I don't think so. I don't think people have been here all along. I think that they've been on and off planet. So when they enter onto this timeline or this existence, they bring a database. You know, you see that with contactees. You see that with others, walk-ins and this, that, and the other. And there are those who are more indigenous to this realm, which means, you know, more, I don't know if they're earthbound, they could be, but there's that also, which comes through. So I think, and I don't believe people have to suffer in any formula. So the idea behind, oh, you must have done this because, you know, this is what you were in a past life, I'm not sure I'm buying any of that. I think all of it has been socially engineered and programmed. And when people have bad things that happen to them, it's not because some creator wants that to happen or they deserve it. It's because people have free will and they act out on that free will. And sometimes it's not very pleasant. So, you know, but there's Madam Karma that shows up with this universal thing where she'll come in and just set it all right. You know, so if something does happen, which is not appropriate to somebody, eventually something else will come down the pike, which will, you know, neutralize the situation.
Yeah,
So,
even it out.
and I've seen that happen. Yeah, absolutely. There's always the ebb and flow. But I think break the program. I think that's what it boils down to. But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I just, you know, I keep trying to find out. I keep trying to understand. It's obviously something that has gone on since the very beginning. So it has to have relevance. It can't be just something that has always happened and therefore is always going to continue to happen. There has to be a purpose to it, a meaning to it, a point to our, you know, being, I don't know, a bank robber or a pirate or a king or a queen. You know, not everybody could be Cleopatra, but you know, there are millions of years here of experience, and you don't have every lifetime on this planet, so that there may be lifetimes where you're in a totally different dimension, having a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
How do they, I mean, people have, especially in dreams, have memory of past lives. And
Mm-hmm.
Those people who write them down have an inkling of an understanding of what that past life was about.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, what it means to them, you know, it's also a personal journey too. It's a spiritual journey for themselves. And so far as what that means to them, for the collective, it probably doesn't mean anything. And yeah, I look at it also like people get recycled. It seems to me like there's been a pattern of recycling here. Insofar as if they do, you know, they enter onto the timeline, they live a certain life, and all of a sudden they get recycled back in. I don't find that's supposed to be an appropriate program. So what my analysis is, when I'm looking at it from an outside perspective, is that cycle should have never happened, and that somehow, some way, there was a misuse and abuse of technology to such a degree people were recycled back here when they should have been living off planet and having an awareness of what they were doing in between space time. So I know it sounds like I'm off in another universe, but that's really, I think, the objective. So when I'm looking at people's past lives, and it's like, okay, so they've had these lifetimes, they get experience with the lifetimes, but then what? What do they do? Okay, they succeed and then they depart and then they come back. I think it's time to move to the next level. And the next level is definitely a different space-time off planet and living off planet and not having to come back and rehash something.
Do you think each lifetime builds upon the last, or do you think you come in and you work on different aspects of life each time?
That's a good question. I think it's a little of both, to be honest. If there's something that wasn't completed before, I think the spirit is strong enough that wants to enter onto the timeline to fulfill. Like if someone gets taken out too soon, and they wanted to be on this realm, I suspect they'd come back and try to complete that cycle just because they wanted to. From
Yeah, but if they wanted to, did they want to from human consciousness or spirit, higher consciousness? In other words, the spirit
well,
inside
let's
say, oh,
right.
damn, I didn't finish. I want to go back and do it again.
I think it's the spiritual design. I don't believe in the human consciousness, but that's just a little causal energy, if you ask me. I think it's the bigger cosmic picture, quite honestly. But right now, what we're doing here, beings like us, we've shaken up so much. So much has been revealed through the many decades of us doing what we're doing, whether it's writing books or teaching. I'm not saying that in arrogance. I'm just saying we made a big difference here. Before that, there's always been someone standing up and being counted insofar as awakening people. But I find that they were slept for centuries, and now it's a whole different ballpark. So perhaps that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Once again, we enter on the timeline to shake some stuff up, to open up some more doorways, and to leave.
Well, we're getting closer and closer, as far as I can tell, to actually being able to tap into, activate, and utilize the portals that have been on the planet since the very beginning of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are stargates too, and I know we've talked about that. We're walking stargates, and if you have your calibration correct and the biosuit field is calibrated properly, you can certainly traverse the galactic highway. But I also am very, very aware of the militarization of this terraform rock called Earth and the weaponization of low Earth orbit to a point where they would like to run interference against free will-oriented beings who want to just traverse the galactic highway because they consider everybody a second-class citizen. Well, that's not true. We are universal beings. We do have free will. We do have a green light to traverse. But they don't see it like that. So just a heads up I know people get it. But that's really, that's the one I've been looking at, insofar as why is everybody in this kind of a stasis of programming when they should be completely out of the cycle, because they can't keep learning anything anymore. It's kind of like you've graduated. And I'm talking about the whole mass collective. They've gotten to such a degree of, okay, we've done this. Let's move on. Let's go to another level, a whole different level that's almost seems foreign by its frequency and by its state of consciousness. I think that's honestly what people need, the whole mass, the whole world. But we'll see what happens in this realm in this year. And you have, you're doing your monthly analysis and psychic visions. And
Yes.
I haven't checked. I tend to not want to check to see where you're at and what you're doing. But how are things? Yes.
Actually, it's really been, I stopped them for a long time and was encouraged to start them again. And every now and then when I put them together, I think, oh, do I really want to publish this? And I have been told that, okay, go ahead and do it. You're not going to, I don't want to scare people. But there is a lot going on. I mean, when I keep talking about earthquakes, and we keep having them, and it's not because I'm talking about them, but because they're actually there. And there's so much that is beginning to be uncovered and revealed that the general public knew nothing about.
Right.
I mean, for instance, I did not, you probably knew about it, but I did not. I was not aware that we had an underground station in Greenland. That
Oh,
we
you mean a
did.
military base? Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know about
I don't know if it's an operation or not. I think it was an old one. I think it was kind of like, I don't know if it's a skeleton crew or not, but yeah, I've heard about that.
They at one point were doing biological stuff. They deserted. It was during the missile crisis and stuff, and they found that because it was in the ice and the ice was moving, the ice kept starting to crush everything. So they had to take the missiles out of there. But then they did some other medical stuff, and it's still there. It's still functional. It's just a but we have a military base there that I did not know of.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they're chomping at the bit to have that area, that territory, the new administration, But to me, it's like, they want global domination anyway. It's quite obvious. They're not going to get what they want, though. I mean, even if they try to have it, there are other forces out there that are saying no. And I'm very clear on that. That's not wishful thinking. I'm telling you point blank, and you probably get it too.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can only
No.
get away with so much, and then it's going to be, that's it.
Well,
So,
everybody's talking about one world government. It's just not going to happen. Not now. It will at one time happen, but we're talking hundreds of years, maybe more, as the plates begin to move back to form Pangea again. At that point, there will be a one world government because it'll be one world. But
well, that's interesting. I see this place as being moved out of orbit at some point or being annihilated, to be honest with you, but I won't be here. But from my perspective, I suspect this is going to be, this particular Earth was never supposed to be in this space-time configuration. I'm very clear on that. That's one thing this is why we never get anywhere here in the illusion of space-time. Another part of it is the moon is from a different space-time configuration, which was never supposed to be permanent here either. So once again, you've got two things intersecting there with different configurations. So I find whatever's coming in, eventually this place will be gone and there'll be a new Earth star, but it won't be Earth. We won't see it. We'll probably be off planet by then, or you might be around.
Please.
And regenerated in your avatar design.
Okay,
That's
maybe
better.
If I
that's
could
what I want.
I want a new avatar.
That's
but,
me. That's what I'm looking at. Well, just yeah, we can do that. We can do that.
That would be nice.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's just, we seem, as far as I can tell, we seem to be repeating old patterns.
Right. Like a bad computer program.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's happened before and it will happen again, I would think.
Until they break the pattern, until they reboot the system. And I'm not saying rebooting a government or rebooting a country. I'm saying rebooting the biosuit and also the entire configuration of space-time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't understand the mechanics behind that. Even somebody like Musk wouldn't get it. I mean, he really need to be tutored on that. So, but I know it needs to happen. So whatever these guys are doing, man, have fun. That's all I can say. But
well,
not at everybody's expense and suffering, right?
It's interesting watching it, and I have to admit, I'm watching. I'm not I'm not getting upset over anything because I know none of it means anything.
Well, it's true. It's almost like a distraction in a sense of a scattering, like just making rapid fire, distraction. And I've always said, energy up, look at the skies, watch the stars, pay attention to what's happening beyond this configuration. That's really what it's about.
Well, there's a lot going on out there.
Well, there is, but we're all synced up with it, even if we don't feel like we are. I mean, it feels like there's a dampening feel here to some degree with the weaponization of everything. And that's just one little fractal. But the composition of what we are is right there on track with the bigger scenery off planet. So I think people should focus on that. But I get it. Everybody gets distracted. We've talked about the squirrel thing.
Squirrel, well, you get to the point where you get pulled back down to, so should I wash my windows or should I wait? I mean, it's kind of like, I know there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to have to come down before anything of any major import happens. And they're all just playing. It's like children playing cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians. I watch it and all I could think of is, these are children. These are not adults.
Yeah, they're very immature, very, very immature. But it's like a rich man's toy too. This realm, this terraformed rock called Earth, has become the rich man's toy, and it's like anything goes if you have the money to do it. And that's what I'm seeing. All the stops are out, and it's it is what it is. And of course, everybody's there, like they're fighting amongst themselves to some degree because they're all in competition for something, right? For the prize of this realm or whatever they think they can get out of it. So yeah, I'm seeing that going on, and it's nobody exists to them. We don't exist to them. And I've said it before. I mean, if you think that the mass collective is important, they're not to them. They don't see it like that. They just want to play the game, and they're playing the game. So once again, live your lives, but also focus on cosmic forms and what's really happening beyond this realm, because they don't, in my opinion, they don't care about the people here in any formula.
Well,
So
you see,
that's what I've looked at.
these new these people who pay millions of dollars to go up in a space capsule.
Oh, right. That's tomorrow. It's all these gals going in. Yeah, the girlfriend and fiance, I
Now,
guess. Of
I
who's
have to
those?
tell you something. It's I don't know if it's this time or the next time or the time after, but there's going to be a catastrophe.
Probably. I agree with that. Well, it's
It
it's superficial. It's superficial. Okay.
well, it's
And that's
kind of
part of it. Maybe that's the cosmos.
well,
Go ahead.
it's like the submersibles that went down to the Titanic.
Right.
It
Yeah.
it
Mockery.
became, paying $1 million or whatever to go down to the Titanic, and then sooner or later it exploded. And I really
Hmm.
have a feeling that we've got the same thing. You don't do something like this for fun just because you can afford it. That's stupid.
Exactly. Well, they are, though. I agree with you 100%, but I'm seeing the recklessness in that. And I'm seeing it. And that's what's so interesting because I take cosmic forces and space travel very seriously. And I look at these guys like they're reckless. They're almost like madmen. I mean, you have to be eccentric, no doubt. But my point is there has to be something to reel them in and have this reality check of the cosmic design. Like, some things are just plain foolish. To me, I would never do that, but it's all once again for show. It's superficial. I think the last time he did something like that, we had William Shatner. Everybody adores William Shatner. Who doesn't love Captain Kirk, right? So they had him
Right.
as one of those, obviously for promotion and publicity and this, that, and the other. And I get it. But at the same time, there's this, if you're rich, you can come on board. But if you're poor or if you're, middle class or upper middle class, oh, heaven forbid, Cinderella, you can't get on that craft. This is for the rich people. And this is where it's going to go like the SS Titanic. I'm telling you, man, at some point it's going to implode. And I agree with you on that.
I just feel like it's going to happen within the next 12 months. That there will be, now I don't know if how much each of them pays just covers the cost of the ship and the fuel and everything or whatever. But still in all, that many millions of dollars, look what it could do to Appalachia.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they don't
I
care.
mean,
That's my point. They don't care. But
um,
low Earth orbit isn't a big deal anyway. I don't know why they think it's so. We're space travelers. You're not space travelers. You're going into low Earth orbit. Give me a break. That's nothing. Okay, that is nothing. I know it seems like something, but it's not. Okay.
well, we're
So
not
my
going to
point is
send it
like
to
whatever.
Mars.
Oh, even Mars isn't impressive at this point in space time. So I'll tell you point blank, man, and especially since we understand the complexity behind exotic tech and using rockets is just not something we do normally if
Mhm.
you're a real traveler. So go ahead and use it and play the game, guys. Play the game, and everybody's along for the ride. And I'm bored, and I don't have any popcorn. And what else can I say?
Well, no, it's just that. Now, don't get me wrong. You might have coaxed me into a submersible until the
Oh,
explosion, then not. But
well, I
I
like
would have,
submarines.
well, yeah, but no, I would have, I would like to have seen the Titanic,
Yeah.
but not now. Not,
Well, it's the way they created it too. I think didn't he cut corners insofar as the materials they used and so many other things. I think that it was just reckless, and I don't think it was there was no oversight from what I understand, or a lot of problems with that manufacturing, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. I have to look
yeah.
at it again.
I mean,
But that's why
it
we have
wasn't,
oversight. Go ahead.
well, it wasn't what Greg Cameron did, his submersible, the one that didn't make it was more of a public convenience type thing. So
Hmm.
it was done just for the money
Right.
and not
Well, I
with
remember when
people's
Dr. Ballard went down there with a little robot, remember?
oh yeah.
Dr. Ballard. I mean, that was a long, long time ago. Obviously, I'm old in the illusion of aging, but I remember
Yeah.
him and I met him. I think I told you that a long time ago when I was working in the museum and I got to meet him and he was fabulous. But yeah, I mean, I think that there has to be some kind of somebody has to be paying attention with oversight and professionalism and etiquette and not recklessness. And I get it when you're a billionaire, you just want to. It's like Jurassic Park. Well, they just cloned the wolf, right? You heard about that, the new wolf that they
Oh
just
yes,
cloned,
there was
right?
a cute
The dire
puppies.
wolf.
Yeah.
I want one. Honestly, it's like Game of Thrones. I'm like, here I am. Okay, give me one, or I'll buy one.
Well,
No, but
were
I do
they
love them. They're
are they,
gorgeous. But once
I
again,
just
10,000 years. Okay,
now I saw the
what?
puppies. How big will the wolf actually get?
About 150 pounds, from what I understand. I mean, they're good size. They're good sized dogs. Well,
Would
not
they
dogs, wolves.
equal, one of the wolves that's out there already?
I think they're a lot more aggressive, if I'm not mistaken. I think of course, they've been modified. So once again, who knows what they've been using? I think they actually cloned it from a regular wolf. So probably wouldn't have that kind of demeanor, but nonetheless, it's still in the genetic code somewhere, and it could surface just like Jurassic Park. And those types of wolves are badass wolves. I mean, that's why they use them in the illusion of Game of Thrones, right? You see those beautiful wolves they had, the white wolves. I mean, this is what we're talking about, wolves that are very powerful. So, yeah. Did you see Game of Thrones?
Yeah, oh, of course.
Okay, good. I know some people haven't, can you believe it or not? But
How could
yeah,
they
I mean,
not?
I would love one. But they want to clone a woolly mammoth now, and I would love those too. And I want a T-Rex, and yeah, I get it because there's a kid in me too that loves stuff
Well,
like that, right?
woolly mammoth, I could see for food. You
Oh
know,
no, I just like to keep one, right? Or go to the park and see him.
would you want to feed one?
Oh, I don't know about that. I
Yeah.
guess.
No, 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 no. Just, I mean, come on, look what we did to the buffalo. I mean,
True.
they're almost extinct. Not
But people
totally.
too, cloning people. Once again, this is not unheard of. And I'm sorry, but I know we've done cloning before, so it's not like it's one of these things where it's never happened. It has happened. So that's an interesting one as well.
That what show was it? What was the movie where they cloned Hitler?
Oh, Boys from Brazil? Not that one.
Yes, yes, yes. Boys from Brazil.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah.
It wouldn't
It doesn't
surprise
take much to clone anybody.
No, just a little DNA.
Right. And you've seen Gattaca, right? I mean, Gattaca is another one that I think is actually right on track. It comes down to that genetic engineering of people. Yeah. Which, of course, there are a lot of people out there right now. These rich billionaires are doing it right now.
It just, I know there are rich people that had their favorite pet cloned. So that
I would have done that with Lex. Yeah. If I had the money, I probably would have done it.
I had a cat that I would have done it with. Absolutely. But it just, when you see how much money those things cost and you think, where could that money?
I'm not sure.
I get antsy about people that take these huge vacations, and all I can think of is, good gracious, that amount of money could have helped a lot of people, could have saved a lot of animals, could have done, instead of somebody being able to walk over, around the pyramids and say, oh gosh, look at that. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me anymore. And it could be my age. It could be the fact that, I don't really want to travel anymore. But when I look at how much money it costs, I know a couple that went to Dubai and they stayed in a hotel, and the suite they stayed in was, and it was a suite. They had their own private surge pool, and then they had their own private little dock into the ocean. And it only cost, without meals, $6,000 a night.
$6,000 a night?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty, that's not cheap. But if you're a millionaire, it doesn't matter. That's nothing. I mean, people can afford it if they have money.
I mean, forget the bathrooms. I would have taken
I think it's beautiful there. I've seen pictures and it's very, very cool looking. Okay. I've known people that have been cameramen over there, and I don't think I'd want to be there. I think there's things that behind the scenes, you have to be very, very careful as a woman there too. So it is what it is. I think it's beautiful. Very nice. The buildings are fantastic and all, but yeah, there's that going on. And once again, you're right about the money thing. I didn't want to cut you off. I'm just saying real quick, but if people would just understand that we're not designed to be poor. I don't think anybody's designed to be poor and struggling. Everybody's in survival mode except them. And that has to change, because honestly, the only reason they're rich is because of the mass collective giving them that ability to be rich by purchasing their products or whatever it is. And eventually that puts them in another scenario of wealth, right? So I think everybody should be a billionaire, and then everybody can be happy. That's my Peter Pan wish. Okay.
You know, I don't,
it can happen. It can happen.
you know, I don't want a lot of money because as soon as you have a lot of money, you worry about it.
I wouldn't. I just
And
live. I'd be going off planet. I'd just be getting out of here. I wouldn't worry. I don't think you'd be worried either. Well, though I see these guys worrying. It seems like they're obsessed with their money. These rich people.
yeah,
So
it's
with
kind of
stocks
like,
and everything else.
exactly. And it's funny. My sister's husband died, and when she got his portfolio and rolled it into her portfolio, it was more money than she'd ever had. And now she is constantly looking at how to protect it, how to invest it, how to do this, how to do that.
Mhm,
I don't have to worry about that. I have no money.
mhm,
Whatever comes in is what I spend, and I spend it.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I don't have to worry about um, interest rates or anything like that. I just have to worry about covering what I'm going to spend for that particular month. I can't these people that have so much money that they have a stockbroker and a whole company there investing their money and their puts and
mhm.
shares and the whole thing. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense to me. If you and I have another friend who suddenly came into money, and all he does is worry about who's going to get it when he dies and how can he invest it. And you know
Wow.
no,
Ferenques. Huh.
yeah,
That's very
no,
interesting.
money is
It's almost like
is
the
they say
world's
the
curse,
root of
huh?
all evil. I don't know if it's the root, but it sure is the flower of evil for sure.
Well, I think they just, yeah, I think that they're paranoid, but it's unfortunate. I don't know. I wouldn't mind having a lot of money, but I wouldn't be a weirdo with it. I'd probably give it away, and I do eccentric stuff. I mean, like beyond SpaceX stuff, and it's it is what it is. But I certainly it is. I don't have a problem with money. I really don't. I think that people worry about it too much. I think that's going to put a block on it, like what you're describing. If they get so
But
scared and so concerned, they're going to, I've lost things too. Remember, I would have been retired with a lot of money in my 40s, and I was extracted into a program which took away everything. So I know what it's like. I know what it's
yeah,
like to have everything taken from you and not have it back. I get it. So, and I never look back. Okay, so it is what it is at this point in space time.
we get to the point where it doesn't make sense to me. I am sustainable. Now, if anything massive happens, I'm in deep trouble. but if nothing major happens with the government and everything, I'm okay. And hopefully the government will stay around for another, let's see, I intend to break 100, so at least another
You're so
20
cute.
years.
100,000 years. Well, you'll be around for sure, and maybe the government won't, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're not going to have anything, right? So once
Well,
again, things can
yeah,
happen where you'll be abundantly wealthy and comfortable and everything else, and they may not exist anymore.
that would be,
I mean, things can
you know,
happen overnight.
well, it's funny because of all the ads on TV, the only one I really have trouble with is the ASPCA.
Oh,
And I want to take all those animals that have been mistreated, I want to have a country where I could just turn them loose and feed them.
I
Um,
know. I'm the same way.
I it's just it's awful. And I have a female cat, and I can't bring another cat in because she's a bitch. But
Well, she'll get over it. I don't know, maybe a kitten. Maybe she wouldn't have a problem with a kitten because they have like a maternal
if it
side.
was male, maybe, but not female. I have discovered you can't have more than one female cat.
I have male cats. I have 3 male cats and 2 dogs, and they're all males actually. I like
Yeah.
males better than females for animals. Absolutely. Sorry,
Now
but it's
her
true.
her brother was bigger than her, but he tried to play with her. He literally tried to kill her every day. And so when he passed
Mm,
away, she suddenly became a different cat.
mm.
And it was wonderful. And she cuddles and she does all sorts of amazing things that she never did before because she was too terrified of her brother. So I guess
Oh, yeah.
if I was going to bring another cat in, it would have to be a male. But as far as these shelters and everything, I mean, they do a wonderful job, but people just throw their animals away and they mistreat them, and it just, it breaks my heart. Now, if I had $1 million, I'd spend it on animals.
Well, I donated my Volkswagen to the Humane Society, which was stupid, actually, because I love that car. But it was there's a story behind it, but I can't believe I donated. I look back now, I'm like, oh, I miss that car so much. And it was a beautiful diesel, and it was standard and had a moonroof, and oh well. But anyways, it benefited the Humane Society. And I do love animals, and I totally understand where you're coming from. And Apollo has that trauma from wherever he was as a puppy. But he was just he's so much better now, but I'm telling you, these animals go through hell. And it takes a while to get them just to stop having like PTSD symptoms,
Yeah.
So it's amazing. And they're charging a lot at these humane societies, by the way. I've for almost like a $500 for a dog and $400 for a cat that's just a regular domestic cat. I mean, they're getting kind of greedy. I understand they need the money, but I'm like, really? You guys are charging an awful lot of money for a dog like that? And
when you stop and think about it, what we're doing to our animals is horrible. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good hamburger, but when Patrick and I drove across country many years ago, we went by the stockyards where they were killing, where they were processing the beef. And we saw the animals in the pens and we smelled it, and I couldn't eat meat for a couple of years. It was just seeing the horrible conditions that they were being put through. There has to be a better way. And the same thing with chickens. I don't know.
I agree with that too.
I don't feel as sorry for the chickens as I did for the cows.
Well, chickens are not, but they can genetically modify. I know they do, and people hate genetically modified food. But my point is, I think there's a way to synthesize meat to a point where it's not garbage and it's not insects, but it's actually something which tastes like a cow or a steak. And maybe that's the best route if people don't want to. I mean, honestly, it does take up a lot to breed animals and to butcher them. I mean, I don't see the logic behind that. Do you? To just basically that's all they do is breed cattle and that's it. So yeah, I think that whole cycle of murder and that whatever it is needs to go. But the same thing with people too. They're not designed to die. I know people think they're supposed to live this cycle of life and death. They're not. We're in the wrong space-time configuration. We wouldn't be dying if we were in the right space-time. People don't want to hear that. I get it, but go ahead. Think what you want. But I'm telling you, everything's wacky here. It's like some kind of a fun house.
I think everybody should watch Soylent Green.
Oh yeah, well, that's classic.
Oh yeah, that was.
And Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yes. Put those two together back to back, and you can wrap it up with Planet of the Apes. There you go.
You never know. I know when we were Gene and I, second husband, we went to Iceland. And they had steak there in a hotel. And it didn't look like the steak that I'm used to here. And the waiter finally asked, if we liked the steak. And I said, yeah, it was very good. It just didn't taste quite the same. And he said, well, it was whale. And I wouldn't have eaten a whale if I'd known it was a whale. I can't believe that they would do that.
Like whale steak? Why didn't he say it was whale steak? Why didn't he expand on what it was?
It's a mammal. It's beef.
But still, it's a whale. And they're very important. Well, the record keepers, they're very
absolutely.
Intelligent. Wow. What did it taste like? I mean, did it taste like, I don't know.
Tasted like beef. It did.
It did taste like beef. Oh, interesting. Wow.
It didn't have as much fat through it. Okay. It was more just meat, and it looked beautiful. It just didn't taste the same. And I thought, well, maybe my taste buds are off or something. But I wouldn't have eaten whale. I absolutely wouldn't have eaten a whale.
Mm.
So, there's so much that we eat without thinking. And after seeing, the slaughterhouses, there was no way I wanted to go near beef
Right.
for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it just has to be a better way to get your protein. And of course you can with eggs and cheese and stuff like that. But
Well, yeah, even synthesized foods. I mean, The Matrix comes to mind, the movie, like those shakes they were drinking. I know it sounds weird, but I don't think the body requires the foods we're designed to. I mean, we decided to eat here in this realm because that's how people grew up with it, But I think in the long run, when we really get to an advanced civilization, we're going to be doing stuff like that, where it's just going to be that kind of a drink. It may not be so appealing, but I find that I think that's really what it boils down to, is something to sustain the suit, but not necessarily eat like just these types of course, 4-course, 5-course meals, whatever they are, 3-course. I don't think people need to anymore. And as the older you get, the less food you require, in my opinion, anyway. So, yeah, I think things will change. They really will. We might look back in our time machines and say, gosh, look what they're doing now, and look what they should have been doing then, and all that. So,
well, when I think back about the kind of life my grandmother and grandfather lived, and then the kind of life I'm living now, it's so different.
right.
And it's amazing because you just don't see centralized families anymore the way you used to see, where there would be a grandmother and a great grandmother and everybody would get together for certain meals and stuff like that. That doesn't happen anymore. So
No, it doesn't.
so the aspect of family is changing dramatically. And I'm not sure I like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's getting more synthesized, kind of digital, in my opinion. And I think that's the future also. It's going to be very, very different. But yeah, of course, it has a lot to do with the technology and everything else that's been coming along that's being revealed now. It changes the whole dynamic, the way people communicate globally and everything else. I mean, it's convenient, but it's changed everything.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't know if it's bad or good, honestly. It is what it is.
Well, I don't know either. All I know is that I have 2 grandchildren that I don't see. They're at school.
Mm-hmm.
But even when they're here, they're off doing their own things. And if I can't follow them on Instagram or X, I wouldn't have a thing. I wouldn't know what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Well, their
And
knowledge is based on basically interconnecting and also being in, accessing Google, where they used to ask their family members or their parents or their grandparents about information. Now they can just go right into the database on the internet. So that's another thing. It's taking the communication that could have been there for education from a family member onto the internet, if you ask me.
but even the internet, you can't trust anymore.
Oh, I know. I mean, some of the data is okay and a lot of it's not. And even those chat GPTs, they're not all that either. I mean, they appear to have some data that's good, but at the same time, only as good as how much they've data mined and acquired and what kind of database they're using and who's putting it together and this, that, and the other. So it's based on perspective. It's not really based on truth. Or, sometimes it can be biased. And we've talked about that before as well. So, yeah, I think everything's kind of sketchy right now, quite honestly. Knowledge is very different. And then, the way people are acquiring their information.
It really, it bothers me because, first of all, kids used to learn history by listening to their parents.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And yes, their parents obviously had their own opinions and stuff, but when they talked about war, probably one of the relatives had been in a war and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And today, that's in one of the schools here, they're teaching the Holocaust didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, teaching a lot of stuff.
It's
they're just based on whatever they want to teach. Yeah, no.
Well, that and the thing that they're doing about homeschooling. Frankly, if I had a child today and the energy, I would homeschool the child.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I would trust a public school to teach my child.
No, but I can tell you the future of education is going to be like Ender's Game. It's going to be just like that. If you've ever seen it, children will be interconnected into a communication system interface. They'll be downloaded with data. and that's how they're going to run. I'm not kidding you. That is the future. And I'm sure a lot of these rich people have already gotten that insofar as how they're training their children. I wouldn't be surprised they're using the tech already with that. So I'm surprised rather. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting mundane data, well, you know that. Even well, you're a teacher, but you were probably teaching the good stuff. But honestly, I hated school and I didn't pay attention. I was very intelligent, but I didn't like school. And I think I might have told you when the first day I went to kindergarten, I got in the car, my mother goes, "How'd it go?" And I'm like, "I'm quitting." So that was me. Okay. I'm telling you point blank, because I was reading books and before I even started, and I was always reading like adult books, and I wasn't messing around with children's books. I was reading, like, we had a big library, so I was into that. But I can see why children get like, "Oh, this is so lame," or the teachers are not giving them what they need. And then of course it's so important that they have some kind of database that's accurate. That would be helpful, or not based on bias or opinions or somebody's perspective or misperceptions. I mean, all that, all the discrimination, all the prejudice, all this garbage. I mean, like I said, it's been backwards for a while. So I think the AI is going to take over that education. To be honest, that's just my take on the
but what
future.
is it going to put out there? I mean, when we've had world wars, and both sides should be covered. I mean, I think that it's like the North and the South here in Nashville. You talk to a lot of these Southerners, and it's kind of like the South actually won, but we let the North think they did, and it's so. What is the truth? And you kind of,
and then they can't get over that either. That's, I didn't mean to walk on you. I'm sorry, but the whole idea behind them having polarity with the North and South and the whole thing with the Civil War, they're
no, this is, and see, that's
still in the bloodline. Okay, the polarity is still there. We're talking about past lives. So
look at what the Hatfields and the McCoys. Do you know they still talk about it? There are McCoys and there are still Hatfields, and they're not intermarrying. They're not shooting each other anymore, but they don't like each other. And you get to the point where even this country isn't whole. And
oh no,
and that's scary.
It's a mess. Right. And you look at Scotland, okay, my clans, they don't mention certain clans to my clans because, well, we have issues, okay? And I don't want to mention them. We were murdered by some of them, and I guess they held a grudge over these how many centuries. But you know how that rolls, and I wish people would get over it. It'd be nice. But that's always going to be there. I think it's always going to be there.
What's wrong with us? That
I don't think it's us. I think it's them.
Well, okay. But what's wrong with the human species that we have to hold grudges like this? Why?
I think it's lack of education. I think it's the way they've been educated and brought up by their family members, and all that. When it's programming, it's programming, it's input output. So the data is obviously, it works on the emotional body. And apparently whatever was going down with the genetics, insofar as the family line, I mean, it has a lot to do with their behavior, their output, if you ask me. The imprinting, the psychological imprinting, the psychic imprinting, everything. And then you have the genetic code, which is in association with cellular memory with the family and the bloodline, and you have that access. I think it can go on so many different levels. I think that the biggest theory is for people to get out of that and break that cycle is doing the spiritual path working that you and I do, right? Or going to the next level through higher consciousness or whatever it is to break the barrier beyond the program, to get out of that cycle, just like anything else that people get out of cycles, whether it's abuse or whatever. You break the pattern, you break the cycle, and you move to the next level. I don't think that society has done that. And it takes a lot of work to do that. And it takes almost breaking away from your family for a while to redirect the flow of what you want to do and do what your desires are versus what they want you to become or what they want you to be. I mean, I've seen that before, that imprinting that goes on to such a degree that it puts a poison on the person who's trying to grow and evolve here. So, it's just my outside observation, but I think society has some problems. Yeah. Everywhere across the world.
But is the solution taking kids away from the family and putting them all into one group and teaching them as a group? Or I mean, I know parents that just suck. And
I agree with you. I think some parents should be having children. And I know this, I've said it before. I know it pisses people off, but some people should not breed. They should not have children, and they have no business raising a child. And that's the problem we're running into too. And so when you see, oh, well, this child, the parents want all control over the child, but they're dysfunctional as hell. Why don't you let this child go or let it grow and evolve? And I think that's why AI comes to mind, because I can see why they would want a child interconnected with something that's neutral, positive, that doesn't want to imprint them with a bunch of crap, a bunch of personal stuff, that just gives them a database to work with and not anything else. Now, I know that sounds kind of cold, but it's not, because I've interconnected with technology. And for me, I think that that's the best way to learn. The interface is a phenomenal way to learn. You can call it machine learning, a lot of other stuff, but that's just me. But some of these parents out there, I don't think they should have had children. And actually, I mean, I probably shouldn't even mention on air, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's for educational, yeah, but there's something a family does teach a child: compassion, caring, giving, sharing, theoretically.
Sometimes, but not all the time. I mean, think about it. A lot of parents are cold. They're narcissistic. They don't teach their children right. As a matter of fact, they grew up with the same pattern the parent has and the same addiction issues. So I don't know. I think if you're a wonderful parent, kudos to you. And I know there are wonderful parents out there. Don't get me wrong.
There are.
But I also know there are a lot of creepy parents out there who abuse their children. The kids grow up messed up, and they could have avoided that, first of all, by not having a kid. If you know you have a problem psychologically or you're an issue, don't breed. Don't have a child. Don't put them through that misery. And don't adopt an animal. I'm just saying this. Get help. Get somebody to help you. But that's just the way I say things. And it's not cold. It's my way of protecting a future. And,
maybe instead of having to get a marriage license, you should have to get a breeding license.
Well, honestly, I don't think people should breed. And I've seen it. They do it sometimes to secure the marriage, to trap the male. I've seen that. I've seen it to a point where it's a contract, that the marriage is just a business contract. And it's just, to procreate for whatever it is for their family line, this, that, and the other. So I don't know. I mean, it's really not my business, but I'll tell you, I don't like it. I don't like the way people just casually get into this thing about family, and they say it's all about family, but it's not. When push comes to shove, talk to the child, talk to the adult after they grow up, and tell me what they think about the whole scenario as they were growing up and the misery they were in. And I can look at that and reflect on so many different things. I mean, if I could have a conversation with a lot of my family members, I would have said, you should have stopped breeding. Okay. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying. Okay.
Well, I have a sister who I love. And when she got married, the second time, I said, look, if you have a child, I will take that child and raise it as my own. Because you'll be a terrible mother. Because she would have been. She didn't. But I think that there should be, I don't know, a breeding license. I think you should be required to qualify to be a parent.
Perhaps. Yeah. And also, I'm not trying to sound snobbish and everything, but I'll tell you, don't have a child if you're poor. I'm sorry. If you're broke and you're struggling, you know how hard it is to raise a child and give them everything you want to give them when you don't have a dime. It's hard enough when you have an animal if you don't have any money. Please don't bring a child in. And I'm not trying to sound mean. I get it, but there's precautions you can use. There's all kinds of things you can do to not get pregnant. And it's my opinion that they should not. I'm sorry. And they'll say, oh, but they only need love. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. Kids need an education. They want the nice things in life. They want to have nice clothes. And it's not superficial to look good. And it's not superficial to have the nice things in life and not worry about when your next meal is going to come from, or have to hawk something at a pawn store because you don't have the money to pay your bills. And I have seen this stuff, and I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to sound mean or anything, but I'm telling you, people, be responsible. And that's the only thing I can mention is I don't see responsible very often. It's always an excuse as to why they want another kid. It's disgusting to me. So I don't know. Don't get me started, but that's one of my things where I'm like, oh, please don't have any more children.
Well, no, I agree with you. And not only that, but there are people who want to adopt that, can provide things for children. And there are people that have babies because they get money for every baby they have.
Oh, that's right. Well, the welfare ladies or whatever they are.
Yeah.
No, I see that too. That's insanity. I'm sorry, stop breeding. And I think at some point, I don't want to sound like this sounds totally cold, but why don't they get sterilized or tubal ligation or something to stop them from breeding? Does that sound mean? I'm just saying, be responsible, for crying out loud. Stop having children like that. Stop getting knocked up. I think they do it for their own weird ways, but you're right. I've seen the welfare ladies, like 5 kids, and they're all on food stamps. I guess that's where the food stamp fraud comes in, because you have that going on. I'm sorry, but stop having children. You wouldn't be in that predicament to begin with. If you were a responsible adult, you would have stopped at one. Even if you had one, you would have gotten some kind of an education so you make a living, right? You don't sit there and have all these kids and then can't afford them. Then the government has to deal with it. I'm just saying, I see a lot of problems there, and I can understand why they were looking at certain levels of fraud.
Well, certain
But
levels
that's none of my
I
business.
can
Like here with the
see.
fraud.
No, I can see certain levels, and yet there are family is important, and there is the element of family and struggling together and making things work, and it is a lesson for sure, but it's kind of hard to explain to
Mhm.
a child or a family or whatever. It's
Mhm.
it's really quite amazing.
Well,
So I agree with you a lot, but at the same time, a family unit is a very precious thing, and it can survive anything if it's the right kind of family unit.
well, that's just it. If it's the right family unit, that's just it.
Yeah. Excuse me, I got to kill a bug.
Uh-oh, what'd you get?
I don't know, but it's a big one.
Uh-oh.
It's now a dead
Tis the
one.
tis the season. I had a
Yeah.
wasp come in my house earlier.
Oh
I
my
had to get
goodness.
rid of. Yeah, I have to get rid of that because the cats will go after it. But
But as much as I agree with what you're saying, that there are people that shouldn't breed, um, there are some family units that are just as precious as they can possibly be, and they have survived and they have thrived and they have raised wonderful adults. So it has to do with the atmosphere you put a child in, what they become. So it's kind of it's a tough
Mhm.
choice. You can't make a blanket choice. You have to, everything has to be done.
Well, like I said, I'm just looking from the outside. Yeah, I'm an outside observer insofar as my analysis of what I see here on the timeline. And yeah, there are great families and there are dysfunctional families, but input output on the timeline and observe what's going on here, I think, is the biggest thing. And
Well,
then
I
the
think,
future is going to be interconnection. I guarantee it's going to be AI interface anyway. So,
well,
and that's not going to be related to the family. They're not going to be a hive. So,
when you look at what's happening to the family unit now, um, it's very rare that it's really a unit.
oh, it's
Um,
not a unit. And usually they don't like each other and they hold grudges against each other. And then they grow up and they never talk to each other again. Um, you know, like I said, it's not as pretty as people think it is.
but there are pretty parts to it too.
I
Um,
guess.
I don't know when what was the that one family on TV that had 20 children?
It's not the Von Trapps. No.
Um,
Which one? I'm teasing.
20
Was it the
kids.
lady who had a bunch of no, what was that?
No,
Are you
this
saying
is
they were the
I.
same age or no?
They were I don't remember where they were, but she had 20 children, and they raised
Mm,
them all, and she
too much.
homeschooled them all, and um, they did well. They had um, they clearly had enough money. They weren't starving, but that's a bit much. 20? No, I don't think
Oh,
so.
that's a litter. Okay.
Yes, it was a big litter.
Too many.
Um,
Oh my goodness.
but when you look today at what the family units are, um, both parents are working, the kids are in school, there isn't enough together time. Everybody has cell phones, so there's no talking. Do you know I learned about my family by being bored to death at the dining room table every Sunday when my mother and grandmother talked about family.
Mm-hmm.
And I would kill now to be able to ask questions that I should have asked then that I didn't. And that whatever the wisdom was there, or the information was, is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 grandchildren, except, on the holidays and stuff like that. And then there's really no way to bore them to death with family stories because they don't care. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not mean about it, but they don't care.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you look around and you think of all the family heirlooms that people have these days, and the kids don't care. They don't want them. It won't mean anything to them. And so, it's yes, I'm old fashioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a new generation. It's just a new generation pretty much raised by the digital arena.
Yeah.
And, like I said, whether they like it or not, the bonds of those families are disintegrating, whether they like it or not. It's going to happen. They'll still stay in touch to some degree, but my point is that that's the future. And I think that's what people are seeing right now, if they even make it out of this wormhole happening right now in this country and in the world, we'll see.
The world is definitely going through shifts and changes, and there is no more normal. We're getting to a point where we are looking at whatever the new normal is. We haven't gotten there yet, but I don't. It's so disorienting that I look at it and I can't fathom as to where it's all going. Every country is out for itself. Nobody wants to join together to do anything together. And together is how people survive, not separatisms. It's really most disconcerting to look at it and think, this is supposed to be best country in the world, and I look at it and I think, I don't see that anymore. I mean, I'd rather be here than anywhere else, and I know you'd rather be off planet, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's sort of like
I'm worse than Musk when it comes to that. Yeah. I think anybody can be worse than him, but it's me.
well,
Well,
I
the
just
thing, go ahead.
but aren't we looking at a situation where, as individuals, we have an obligation to educate if anybody's listening?
Well, I think that you've been a great educator when it comes down to where you've been and the information you bring forward. Myself too. I mean, people don't want to hear covert technology. They want to hear about the advancement of artificial intelligence. Some people do. A lot of people don't. So I mean, it is what it is. I think the seekers find the answers, and just with any generation. I mean, it's just because they're born into a family and that family's doing okay doesn't mean they're part of it. You'll see a lot of people get educated most of the time outside the family, whether they're reading books independently or they find a teacher or they do something that changes their life forever. So that's another fabric as well. And with this country, you're right. It's the best country in the world. You know what made it so great? And the illusion of back in the day was our technology that we stole. We borrowed. We stole. You can say however you want. My point is that we inherited a lot of advanced tech after the war, and we inherited a lot of data from Nikola Tesla, and that's what kept us very powerful over. And with that, black sciences and technologies, which made us the best country in the world, But now, China's catching up and everybody else. So we'll see where that rolls.
Well, what makes, you just said technology and power. And I don't know that power makes us best. It makes us most powerful. It doesn't make us the best. I know when I got out of college and had 2 master's degrees on top of that, I didn't start to learn until after that. And
Right.
doing things like the podcast where I have to read a book in order to talk to an author, that's been my education. that's where I've gained most of my knowledge, my wisdom, my insight, my inspiration. That's where my education began, when I took control of it. And not
Right.
everybody, not everybody is going to take control of their education.
No, not at all. Yeah, unfortunately, they get into that vicious cycle of survival. They wind up just having to work a job they probably don't like, making a amount of money that sustains them and keeps them going. Once again, that's a survival mode, right? But where's
Yeah,
the education? Where's the time for them to learn and grow and evolve beyond that? You can learn certain things, sure, when you're working, and of course, hands-on is the best training. But my point is that there are other levels that people need to be involved in, and that's not happening. And that's a deterioration in this country, big time. And I've seen it because people are so working 3 jobs, 4 jobs. I mean, I've seen people work a lot of jobs, multiple jobs, just 1 or 2. And to what point, I mean, do they just take a break, right, and start learning and relax or read a book or even for their own entertainment? That
yeah.
doesn't even happen. And then, of course, we were just discussing the rich, the billionaires, who can buy anything in the world. Well, I'd like to see them in that mode for at least a couple of years so they understand where these people are coming from. You know, I just think it's one of those things they should experience.
Well, I gave my son and daughter-in-law and the 2 kids, I gave them books for Christmas, and
Hmm.
they were good. I had spoken with the authors. I knew the book in and out, but I bought the books and gave them books. And my son, no, it wasn't my son, but somebody said, "Well, did you get the books for free?" And I said, "No, I actually bought them." And they were great books, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And they were, easy reads and full of interesting insights. And
Hmm.
and I asked him, my son, uh, today. I said, just out of curiosity, has anybody read any of the books that I gave you? And he said, well, he could only speak for himself and his wife, but no, they hadn't, not yet. And I said, well,
Hmm.
they'll be there, and someday you'll pick one of them up and
Hmm.
read some interesting stuff.
Right.
Um, it blows me away that the element of reading is no longer a skill people really utilize or enjoy,
Mhm. That's true.
which
Well, it's because we're in
bothers
the
me
digital world.
greatly.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, back in the old days, I mean, we were able to do that, and it's our downtime and quiet time. Nowadays, people just have the digital stuff going on. So, yeah, instant gratification, and their minds are working a little bit faster to a point where they probably don't want to sit down and quietly read something that probably takes a little bit longer. I've
That's
seen that
probably.
too. I've given away a lot of my books for people who've wanted them, which I
Mhm.
probably should have charged them for, but I didn't. And they don't read them. I have one that says, "Well, it's been sitting on my bed." I'm like, "Why don't you read it if you don't want it?" I just don't want to waste any more money spending, on
Yeah,
postal at the post office. If you're not going to read it, I'm not going to send it to you. Okay. I don't care if they read it, but my point is that people just don't read unless it's on the internet, usually Kindle or something like that.
yeah. To me, it's sad because there will always be authors, there will always be writers, there will always be poets, and with the kind of um, electronics we've got out there today, so much is available that we can say, I want a book on such and such, and you have a list, a huge list you can draw from on Amazon. I
Hmm.
mean, uh, there's a love of the written word that that has not been taught to children anymore, which
Hmm.
ticks me off. And it's not because I write books too, it's because there's so much amazing material that you can, sitting quietly and reading, that you can gather material inside of yourself from, that people are missing out on. They
Hmm.
will Google something, they'll ask um, Alexis or whoever,
Oh, chat GPT.
and
Yeah.
they'll get their answers. They won't read, and gosh, reading saved my life a number of times. It took me through dark times that I don't want to go back to, but I had my ability to read and to sink into a book and to learn something that carried me through times that were awful in my life. And I just can't imagine someone not having that tool. I mean, where the average reading level was, I think at one point it was 8th grade. Now it's 6th grade.
Wow. That's not good.
No, that's well.
Well, now they have all that, AI to help them write books now too. They have AI. They don't even have to write anymore. Like creative writers, like beings like us, who can crank out a book. I don't think that people can do that much anymore. I think it's a real art, to be honest with you. Nowadays, they have it all automated by AI, and we put in a topic of what we want to write about, and then it formulates it for them. So where's the art in that? And where's the artist in that? Zero. Same thing with music. Same thing with songs. You see it with art all the time, right?
No, yeah, I mean, you're right.
So once again, that's the future, though, as weird as it is. So.
But I have found that when reading a book, I can tell if the author really likes the material or not, because there is an energy that comes through the words. And with stuff written by AI, that energy isn't there.
Yeah.
So that, and I know somebody said they asked one of the chat boxes to write something in the style of, one author, and then in the style of another author, and it was written differently. There was a different style there, but there was no life to it.
Right.
And a couple of the authors that have been on the show a lot, one in particular, he wrote the Last Train to Hiroshima, and he's written a lot of the Titanic books, Charlie Pellegrino. And when he was writing a couple of the books, there was a whole nother feeling to what he was writing, because he was so invested in it. His heart and soul was in writing that book, and you could tell. And then and in another book that he wrote, well written, easy read, but the magic wasn't there. So that's something that AI cannot produce. There is something, and with your books, there's obviously a feeling in what you're writing. You're sharing a part of yourself, and you can tell from how you've written it that you're really putting a piece of yourself into the book that you're writing. AI won't do that.
Yeah, that's true. I can agree with that. Very synthetic, replication.
Cold.
Like I said, it's always a copy. It's a copy of something else usually.
Yeah, and it depends on what people are. Some people don't care about their heart and soul is written.
Right.
James Tabor has written a lot of biblical books, and I ate them up. I adored them because he was so passionate about what he was writing, and you could feel it. And was his writing the absolute historical truth? I don't know, but I know he believed in what he was writing, and amazing stuff. It wasn't just an easy read. It was an adventure that you were on with him, and you couldn't put it down because it flowed.
That's always good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I read a book a week. Sometimes, gosh, when we had Gary Wayne on last week, he was comparing Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. And while I had read all of Tolkien's stuff a gazillion times, I have to admit I had never read The Tales of Narnia. So I read all 7 books, and it was amazing to read 7 books for one interview. So, uh, but
Oh yeah, that's quite the
but
accomplishment.
well, they weren't real long books, but they were 7 books. But I think, they came from a time when it was an art to write. And
Hmm.
not everybody approaches it as an art form today.
That's very true. Well, they're wanting to make money most of the time, so they don't care as long as they have some kind of content. Unfortunate, I know that's how they roll these days. I'm telling you,
Well,
which is
you can't, very few people, can live on what they make on writing. Very few people.
right.
But
Oh,
there's
nobody
some.
makes any money. Not at that. Well, maybe Stephen King.
Oh, Stephen, he had the worst deal ever. He only got something like 3 cents a book at first.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
I would imagine he has a better deal now. But when he
Probably. I hope
started,
so.
he did not get much at all.
It's amazing.
It is. And what is of all the authors that you have read, you have to have a favorite book
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard one.
or one that you really enjoyed.
I still like Philip K. Dick. I mean, I'm kind of partial to him. Do androids dream of electric sheep? And only because I understand where he's been. But yeah, I think somebody like him, he's one of my favorites. I think he was classic and so ahead of the timeline and so futuristic. He was right on track. So I guess he was one of my favorites when it comes down to reading. If I had to look at an author like that, right? But
Yeah.
when it comes down to metaphysical books, my goodness, we've had all kinds of cool books from different authors. It's just unlimited. Who's your favorite author that you've enjoyed reading?
Well, I love Dina Miriam. She writes
Mm-hmm.
about past lives in
Hmm.
her past lives and how they go back to the beginning of Buddhism and Hinduism. Her books I've always loved.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Pellegrino,
Mm-hmm.
his books on Hiroshima are amazing. The Titanic, I read 4 of those. Well, 3.5. I couldn't read. I couldn't go through 4 of them. He's so meticulous that I got to know the people so well. I just couldn't bear to see them die again.
Wow.
And he's written some fiction too, which is really quite phenomenal. He wrote Dust a lot of years ago, and it was about how the insects started to die off at the bottom of the chain, and as they worked their way up, how it affected society.
Mm-hmm.
It was a scary book. James Tabor, I love his biblical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think there have been a couple of books that have blown me away. The Flight of the Bon Monks was a fascinating book, and when I started reading it, I didn't realize that it was current, that all of the characters in it were still alive, and it talked about the Bon monks and how they were persecuted and put in prison, and how it was really funny when Englishman was going to take 4 of them back to England, and they had never worn pants before, so they had clothes made for them, and they put the pants on backwards because they didn't know that the zipper had to go in the back. But it's current, and I think that's what got me. When they were talking about the villages that these guys grew up in and how primitive they were, it's current, and how the Dalai Lama he got snuck out of Tibet. Current main character still alive, living in Tibet in an ashram there. It was a fascinating book, and these people researched it for 10 years before they published it. If you've not read it, you should. It's a
Mhm.
really, really good book. Oh, and then my
Sounds
favorite
interesting.
astrology book, I sent you a copy of Philip Lindsay's. I mean,
Mhm.
if nothing else, it's
Oh,
a great
yeah.
door. It's a heavy book,
Oh, yeah. It's like an
but
encyclopedia.
it is. It is. And he was a charming interview, just absolutely charming. So, there are a lot. I have a lot of
Mhm.
Gary Wayne with all of his Genesis 6 material. I have learned more
Yeah.
about Genesis 6 than ever I imagined. I mean,
Mhm.
I have become almost a biblical encyclopedia in some areas. So,
That's awesome.
it stretches you. It makes you a better
Mhm.
person. I mean, I will grant you that if you put me in a PTA meeting, I wouldn't have anything to talk about to anybody. It's not the kind of material you can stand in line at the grocery store and say, "Did you know that?" Um,
Right.
so but it gives you such a wonderful wealth of material um, to utilize, to incorporate into other things that you're doing to get inspiration from. And
Mhm.
um, I think the hardest thing that I have found over the years is that every now and then I will read something that is just so phenomenally wonderful and exciting. It blows my mind, and there's nobody to talk to.
Right.
The cat doesn't care, and I'll read something
Maybe
and
the
I'll say,
cat does.
"Oh," I'll read something and I'll say, "Did you know?" And she'll look at me like, "Is it snack time?"
Aw.
So no, there has been, I forget what it was, but I guess I had it on tape and I was going someplace and I was driving in the car, and every now and then something so profound was said, I would have to pull over to the side of the road, back it up and listen to it again because
Mhm.
it was so insightful and moving and just a joy. So I mean, but there's a love affair you have with the written word or you don't.
Mhm.
And some people, and Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings. I mean, my goodness.
Mhm. I think
You
everybody's read Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
Just
And,
about.
and and then there's always Harry Potter.
I love Harry Potter too. Yeah. Love
I
that
even
series.
love the spin-offs from it.
Mhm.
Um, that's been very exciting as well.
Mhm.
So, it's kind of like books are an amazing escape and educational tool, and
Wonderful resource.
absolutely,
That's why I
and the
like
reality,
libraries.
well, and it's sad, but um, printed books are going out of style.
Mhm. Yeah. That's why
I
hold
mean,
on to your books.
well, I'm holding on to my books, but um, I always buy the Kindle version of whatever
Mhm.
book I have to read because it's just easier for me to read. But
Kindle's good. It can be convenient. A lot of people use it.
Mark Eddy is saying that his favorite book is Before Roswell. Thank you, thank you.
Ah, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, yeah.
We have
Hey,
Patrick Cook
Mark,
for that.
Mr. Eddie.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I said we have Patrick Cook to thank for Before Roswell. Had he not done the
Very
research,
nice.
it never would have happened.
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. But so,
Indeed. You could have put a documentary out on that.
yeah, true. It's interesting in that where you and I get get joy from reading, today's generation doesn't. And I find
Mhm.
it, and I don't know how you make it fun. I know that
Excuse me.
when I taught special ed, and I had one kid who swore he couldn't read. He said, "I can't read," and he was at the time 15 or 16. And I said, of course you can. And he said, I can't read. I don't know what any of these words are. And I don't care. And I kept him after school one day and I said, okay, now I see the words you have written on your books. And you know what those words are. And they were curse words. They were all sorts of filthy words. So I wrote them all on the blackboard and then I changed letters around. And I said, okay, so this is hell. And he said, yeah. And I put a B in place of the H. And I said, now what is it? He said, bell. And almost 2.5 hours later, I had the board full of words. And I said, you know what all these words are? And he said, I guess I can read. I said, I think you can. Now, I almost got fired because the words at the top of the list were filthy words. but yeah, the prince. I got sent to the principal's office.
Oh, wow.
But he said, what were you doing? And I said, showing him he could read. And then he understood and he said, wash the boards before you go. He said, okay.
Right.
But it is such a wonderful recreation that people today just don't do it. And it's so sad.
Very
because
true.
there's so many of us out there writing books.
Well, I know. Plus, reading is kind of like you need to know. I mean, you just need to know how to read, period. I'm sure people do. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to pick up a book.
Not necessarily, because, with that little microphone, it'll read it back to you.
Oh, so right. Yes.
It's not necessary anymore. And what happens if the electrical grid goes down?
You have Planet of the Apes again, I guess.
Oh, gosh.
The monolith comes to mind from 2010 Space Odyssey or 2001.
Oh, geez, yeah.
But you know what? It really is. I mean, do they know how to, take things apart and put them back together? Some people really do. They're very good at that. But yeah, I mean, it's good to have a backup, right? In the old days, we used typewriters. It's unheard of. They're obsolete now. Isn't that amazing, right?
I can remember when I first started doing the readings on the Mandelas that I was writing. I was writing them out on a yellow pad, and my mother was then typing them up for me.
Wow.
So that was before computers had keyboards. I mean,
yeah.
when I was young, when I was 1 or 2, there was no TV. TV had not been commercialized at all at that point. So I don't know if TV is a good idea or not. It just seems to me that, it's great. I would say it's great for information, but it's not, because you never know what you're getting. These days you have to almost check everything you hear. And even then you don't know if you got the truth. So
yeah, it's mostly entertainment at this point. I think it's always been entertainment to some degree, but yeah, minimal amounts of, like the History Channel or things like that. But even nowadays, yeah, it is what it is. But it was a babysitter for a long time for a lot of people. Use that, their kids and this and the other. A lot of people have downtime. I mean, they don't eat at tables anymore. They used to sit at the in front of the TV instead of sitting at the table, right? So everything changes a little bit, but just watching something and zoning out, I guess.
Yeah.
And I get it. Everybody needs to just decompress, here and there, but.
Well, there has to be evolution of technology, but it takes away from a family unit. And that's where I see the danger in it.
Right.
And to me, talking around a dinner table, well, I'll admit, when I was the kid, I didn't like it.
Mhm.
But now I see the point to it.
Well,
And
communicate. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, but not anymore. People eat at different times, at different places, at different ways. Um, gosh, my son and his family, I mean, they're all very, very busy.
Mhm.
But it's sort of like, and they do go on trips together. So they have together time and stuff. But I am so glad that I'm not having to really be out in the workplace and survive
Mhm.
these days. I
Oh, yeah.
am very happy to work from home.
Mhm. No, I don't blame you at all on that one. I think a lot of people would prefer either being retired or working from home for sure, instead of being out there in the world of crazy.
It is, and I feel very sorry for the generation that is now coming up. I can't
Mhm.
imagine. I can't imagine what their lives are going to be like. And I'll
Yeah, we'll
sit
see
back
where
and
they go with this tech. Mhm.
well, do
I
you
mean, I think
think
it's
that
gonna be converted. What's that? What's that?
what you, what did you we're going to see what they do with X?
No, I just think it's gonna be AI conversion. I think everything's gonna be, the future will be breakaway, but not off planet for these guys. I'm saying these upcoming people, if they make it, it will be artificial intelligence more, virtual than you can possibly imagine, and a very small percentage of people sustaining themselves versus a bigger population. I think that the big population is gonna go. So we'll see. We'll see what they have in mind, the next year or 2 and how far they go. But yeah, I mean, that's what I see anyways, because it's not sustainable right now. Nothing's sustainable at this point in space time,
No, from
the
what
way it
I'm
is.
looking at, it doesn't seem it is.
And it's
And
not. People are too, yeah, it's just not. Well, go ahead.
well, we're overcrowded,
Hmm.
and
And poor
we're
and broke,
we're
and they're
overworked.
just no good.
Yeah,
They're not educated. Okay.
well, and not only that, but when I used to see in some places, guys that'll wash your windshield if you're at a stoplight, or um, and every now and then a veteran that would needs food. But now there are tent cities of people
Hmm.
that have no place to go and they don't have
Right.
jobs, and it's like, my
And they're
goodness.
not drug addicts either. I mean, some are, but a lot
Oh,
of them are just people who can't afford their rent because the rents are outrageously high. So they're literally forced to live in some kind of a weird environment. That creates more PTSD and psychological problems for them than you can possibly imagine. So I think they're building like tiny homes. I saw some article just the other day about these small little places they're building for people who qualify, to
mhm.
give them shelter that has a door that locks, this, that, and the other. I mean, honestly, there's no reason for people to be out on the streets unless you just want them to be out on the streets like that. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it looks bad for any country to have that kind of thing going on. And the lack of education, yeah, I can go on and on about what needs to be fixed and where we need to head with it, but we'll see. But yeah, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all.
Well, I know that at one point in New York City, this goes back probably 20 years, um, the mayor had taken one woman off the street because it was freezing, and cleaned her up, and then found her family and reintroduced her into her family. And within 3 months, she was back on the street because she preferred to be on the street, and she didn't want to let her sleeping place go. She didn't want anybody
Wow.
else to take it. So,
Amazing.
there is a level of the population that is
Hmm.
very content with
Right.
being out there.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I think they get used to it to such a degree. I agree with you on that. That they just don't want to go any place that looks civilized. I know there are people in this area up here who live in their cars, who don't, and it's a choice. I'm not going to get into specifics. I mean, it's not my business, but they're smart people, okay, but they just prefer to live in their cars. So it is what it is. I think that there's a homeless issue, and then there's that stuff going on too. But honestly, I don't think anybody should be forced into living in the streets or into a tent city if they don't feel comfortable and they're scared, and that's just not right. So.
Well, I know for a while in
But you're right, I mean, that
California,
lady. Mhm.
there were huge areas where trailers were just parked along the road, and they were homeless people that were living in their trailers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's a different way of life. And I think we have
Mm-hmm.
nomads that are
Mm-hmm.
traveling around that way, that are living on the road, that are
Mm-hmm.
living in trailers and in their
Mm-hmm.
cars.
Yeah, they live in vans. They live in nice cars. Yeah, they do. They do. I've seen that on YouTube. A lot of them. They seem to be comfortable with it. That could be PTSD too. It could be a psychological issue that they feel like they have to keep moving. They can't stay still, or they feel like they're not safe, so they want to be in one little area. Who knows? Could be all kinds of stuff going on. I don't. I know. It's just very strange to me to see that
I
going
think
on
today,
here in this
I
day and
think
age.
I think today there are more people suffering from PTSD than ever before. And
Yeah, there's all kinds of trauma.
maybe it's just diagnosed now, but it seems to
Hmm.
me that it seems to be a more common thing than it ever was before.
Hmm.
And there was a time when I thought it would be the coolest thing in the world to get a big motorhome van
Hmm.
and travel and just go to different places and stay there for a couple weeks or a couple months and then move to another area. To me, if I had my own home, my own bed, my own closet, my own bathroom, I'd be fine.
Hmm.
But not today. With the price of gas.
That's another one. Yeah, so
So
many things to factor in. Yeah.
but it would have been, had I been 30 years younger, I might have even decided to do that, rather than moving down here,
Hmm.
um, just doing some traveling, and having a facility so I could still do my podcasts.
Hmm.
But, um, it no way. I am a stay in one place person now.
Yeah,
But
it feels
there
kind of
was
good to
one
have
when
your
I
own little crystal cave, right?
yeah. No, I would have definitely traveled around, but, um, I am not a traveler. I really like my home.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
I don't blame you. In
it's
this day
not
and age, I don't blame you at all.
I feel safe here, and, I can get to anything I need, and I
Hmm.
love where I am, but but I'm fortunate, kids coming up out of school, out of college these days, they have
Hmm.
challenges that are very profound.
Right. Well,
And
they usually wind up living at home again, and I don't blame them, quite honestly, if the parents
well,
are okay with it, because it's so expensive to live and they're trying to pay off their debts and everything else. So some of them
oh
move
yeah.
back home.
Well, I moved back home with John when I divorced my first husband
Hmm.
and second husband. Um, my mother swore that if I moved out again, she was going to change her address and not give it to me,
Hmm.
um, just so I wouldn't come back again. But I think that today living is a challenge. That it used to be an adventure, and now it's a challenge.
It's not fun. Let's put it that way. I don't think people are enjoying their lives. The minimal amount that they have is all survival related. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think a lot of people are just stressed out from just trying to sustain themselves. And if they could take that off of them, that pressure, I think we'd have a better society, quite honestly. They're stressed out big time.
Well, farmers are, if you grew up on a farm and you lived on a farm, that's not a bad life. Um,
Hmm.
but is, being in a city and having to survive is tough. I know that um, I watch The Voice on TV, and half of them, maybe a quarter to a half of the people that are on the show um, come from Nashville because
Oh, wow.
they've come to Nashville to make their mark, to be discovered and whatever. And I mean,
Hmm.
Nashville is a mecca for artists, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, those are the kind of people that are going to follow a dream. And it's always tough to follow a dream. I mean, you eventually make some sort of life for yourself, but it's a very difficult dream to follow.
Right. Well, at least they try. And I give them kudos for trying.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't try, you'll never know, right? Just like back in the old days, California was a great place to have success. I mean, but nowadays it's a little bit more difficult. But back then, can you imagine just being out there in the early days? I mean, I bet it was fabulous. And so, well, you're from California, aren't you? Or no?
New York.
Okay. But it seems to me, it just seems to me like it would have been a great time to just kind of get a place and do your thing, be happy by the ocean. I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah, it probably would have been.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked being out there further back in time. I would have mined for gold. I would have definitely been. I would have gone for the gold. Just the excitement of either panning for it, not about to go down in a hole in the ground, but I definitely would have been a gold miner. Actually, and the other thing I often
fun.
Oh yeah, dirty but fun. In Australia, they've got the opal mines again. At one point in time, I wanted to again a motorhome. We have deposits of diamonds and rubies and emeralds and sapphires in this country. I would have gone mine to mine trying to find my own gemstones. That would have been
fun.
Oh yeah. But again, have my own bed, my own bathroom, my own closet,
right?
My own kitchen,
your little place. Yeah.
I'm not gonna rough it. But
I'm not a fan of camping and that kind of camping either. I used to camp. I'm not doing that anymore. Of course, I live near a national forest now, so I don't have to. That is my camp. I live in a campground, basically. Where I live is backed up right near the national forest. So
it's
where everybody goes to escape. It is, but it's concerning with fires and this and the other. But nonetheless, yeah. I mean, but yeah, those days of camping and like, oh no. Homie, not playing.
What kind of wildlife do you have?
Everything you can imagine. I have a bobcat. I have the moose I haven't seen for a while. We have elk and deer, all kinds of things. I saw a mountain lion not too long ago, a couple months ago. He ran right in front of my yard. Did I tell you that? I don't know.
No.
Oh man, the dogs went crazy. They think they were in the house, but I look out my window. There's this big mountain lion running by my window. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, we get everything out here. Whatever you can imagine, they're here at some point. I haven't seen any bears yet, but two-leggeds are out. They're coming up the mountain now. The weather's beautiful. So, of course they litter. They're not as nice as the animals. So,
well, isn't the theory you bring back everything you take in? You don't leave anything.
Well, that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they like it up here. I can tell when people come up here to bike or whatever they're doing. It's a whole different place. It gets away from the craziness of the city or anything else. But we come out here because we want quiet and peace. And I've noticed that when they come up here, they're very loud. They're very noisy. They talk loud and they still have their phones with them. They're just not understanding what they're looking at, right? So it's interesting. But definitely. I love my animals out here. Yeah.
No Bigfoot, huh?
Not yet. Everybody says there's a Bigfoot out here. We have this big running joke that there's a Bigfoot, but there really isn't a Bigfoot. I'm sorry. I'm very skeptical of Bigfoot. Some people are not. I think it's a bear or something else, but I don't know what your take is on Bigfoot.
I think it's interdimensional.
Okay. I've never met one. Knock wood.
Well,
I haven't seen one.
No skeletons, no scat, no. I mean, there have been sightings, so yeah, I think they do exist, but I think they're interdimensional.
Well, it could be. I know I've heard people. I mean, I have friends that say other states, that they swear by it, but I'm like Mulder when it comes to that. I want to believe. So, and I don't want one at my door. Okay.
No.
So
he has a new show
off planet, but not that.
Have you seen his new show?
I hear the X-Files is getting resurrected. Is that it? Yeah.
No, it's Duchovny, or whatever his name is, has a show.
Oh, David Duchovny. Oh, really? I did not know that.
And
What is he doing?
I think it's on the Discovery Channel, and he's just had a couple of episodes, and one of that's where I learned about the site in Greenland.
Oh, really?
He's going into stuff. He's going into stuff that has not been, common knowledge, that is now coming to the fore. It was a very interesting show.
I'm going to have to look it up. Then I'm sure I would enjoy that. Very cool. Well, I know they're bringing back the X-Files. That's why. So he's also doing something on the side, it looks like. So very good.
Yeah, no, it was a fascinating show. It went into the base in Greenland, and it's gone into Area 51 and how it became Area 51 and why. It was very interesting. If it's true.
Well, sometimes it's for entertainment purposes, or sometimes I'll check it out, though. You say it's on Discovery?
I think it's on Discovery, yeah. But it's definitely, I would Google his name and the new show would probably come up.
Cool. Well, gotta check
but
it out.
It was very interesting.
What's the name of the show, did you say?
Can't remember. Something strange, or but I did save it.
Figure it out. I'll find it. It's so easy to find.
Yeah, just Google it.
That's the thing, just get in there and Google. Google it down the drain.
No more having to go through the dusty archives. Just Google it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I have a friend who does genealogy, and she can find stuff on Ancestry.com that evades me totally. I've never seen anybody be able to do research like she does, and
that's good.
It's amazing. So some people are gifted in some areas, and some people are not, and I am a not.
Yeah. Well, I think you're pretty gifted in a lot of areas, that's for sure.
Well, I got a couple. Yeah. I know that there is a lot of new stuff that's going to be coming out here in the next couple of months. So I think we have to keep our eyes open. I do believe that especially, let's see, we're in April. May is going to be a time frame where we're going to see, I think, a lot of new things opening up and investigations in areas that we had not expected or anticipated. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Well, that should be an interesting journey. I know they're saying 420. That's my birthday, by the way, in the Illusion of Space-Time. But it's supposed to be, they're worried that Trump's going to declare martial law. I'm like, not on my birthday. No.
Is 420 your birthday?
It is my birthday. It is. I'm not a Taurus. I'm 29-degree Aries. Everybody thinks I'm Taurus because it's that, but it's not. That's on the cusp end. But yeah, I thought, not that day, please.
Oh, jeez.
So anyways, I'm like, really?
Not fair, not
we
fair.
Do something else on that day?
Well, wait, what's supposed to happen?
Oh, I don't know. I guess he's wanting to do some kind of martial law. I don't think he is. They're worried about it. They said he's trying to declare martial law on the 20th and the Insurrection Act.
There's no reason.
I'm not buying it, though. I don't think it's going to happen.
Now,
I agree.
I do believe at some point within the next 3 years, he will have to. But I'm not sure why.
Due to upheaval or why?
I think that there will be upheaval and he'll have to declare martial law. Now, not exactly sure why.
Stay tuned.
But yes, within the next 3 years. So, going to be interesting. Yeah, his presidency will go down as history as a unique one, for sure. I'm just curious to see what comes next, because something comes next. I mean, how do you?
Well, there's always something.
How do you follow it?
It's
How do
rapid
you
fire.
follow it?
I don't follow
Huh?
it. I just focus on the cosmos. By the way, thank you, Mark Eddy. He wished me a happy birthday early. I just focus on the cosmic design, and I think you do too, even though we're looking at the snapshot of the world. But expect the unexpected, I think, is really the motto, right? It's just like anything can happen at this point, and we'll just see where it goes. And hopefully it's for the best, not for the worst, right? Not for just the benefit of rich, but maybe the benefit for other things. And we'll see how it rolls.
I would think that I don't get the feeling that he's out for the rich. I really don't.
Well,
I
they're making an
know
awful lot of money.
yeah, but you have that much money, it's going to make money no matter what you do.
I mean, there are a few of those people that he's just put into positions of power they're all of a sudden now they're multimillionaires just in the short amount of time they've been there, and they weren't before they got in. So I think I'm starting to look at their stocks and what's going on here, and everybody needs to be successful here, not just a certain branch of people, right? So we'll see where it goes and what he's up to and how sincere he is about everything.
Well, it's we needed a businessman, but at some point a politician is going to have to come in.
I think we need a Martian at this point, and not Musk. Sorry, Musk, step aside. We need a Martian right now. I'm just, the world. Oh no,
listen,
I said it again. Never mind.
You never know.
What's that?
I mean, I watched for a long time Doctor Who, and in one of their episodes, aliens had taken over the bodies of all the English people in power, and when the aliens within them were found out and they were destroyed or whatever, turns out they were pigs that could talk. And
oh, really?
Yeah, it was funny.
That's funny.
It was really funny.
That's hysterical.
But
you're right, Mark, by the way. He's good about that. Yeah, I agree with you on that too. You said there are a lot of sudden billionaires after recent invention. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, we have a lot of things. Actually, we have a lot of things to be thankful for, and a lot of things to complain about. And we're so fortunate. We are so fortunate to be able to complain without having Men in Black coming and getting us.
Well, for now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an MIB spinoff anyway, so honestly, they really should be leaving me alone. And we're almost out of time. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Barbara.
It's
been a great show. So wonderful to connect with you.
Want to tell everybody where you can be found, and we will let everybody go to bed?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm over there for my other shows, Raven Star's Witching Hour, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific on Revolution Radio Studio A. And then, of course, Hyperspace Night Files on Fridays, same station at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, of course, Studio A. And Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives is my website.
Okay.
Books are on Amazon.
And I'm at barbaradelong.com. In a day, we have another show online coming up at, I believe, 2:00 tomorrow. It'll be screening live as well. As always, Solaris, it's such a pleasure to talk with you and be with you and enjoy backing and forthing with you. So
thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, and good night, everybody.
Good night.